Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the Noon News from Montana's news leader.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for tuning in to your statewide noon news. I'm Aja Goare. Our top story today, President Trump is feeling the backlash following his comments that white nationalist groups and counter-demonstrators were both at fault for deadly protests in Charlottesville. CBS's Brooke Silva-Braga reports.
Excuse me.
President Trump is facing bipartisan criticism after he appeared sympathetic toward the white nationalist groups that clashed with counter-demonstrators during a rally in Virginia last weekend.
Not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists.
Yesterday, during a press conference meant to announce infrastructure plans, Mr. Trump doubled down on his earlier comments, blaming both sides for the violence.
So I only tell you this, there are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment.
Mr. Trump grew frustrated when asked if he would denounce the hate groups.
What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
The response to the comments has been swift and mostly negative, not just from Democrats and protesters here at Trump Tower, but also from many in the president's own party. Senator Marco Rubio was one of them, tweeting, "Mr. President, you can't allow white supremacists to share only part of blame." Wednesday morning, Mr. Trump also ramped up his ongoing feud with Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon and owner of the Washington Post. In a tweet, the president accused the e-commerce company of doing great damage to tax-paying retailers. Brooke Silva-Braga for CBS News, New York.
The woman killed when a white supremacist allegedly rammed his car into a crowd of protesters is being honored in Charlottesville, Virginia today. 32-year-old Heather Heyer is being remembered for standing up to white supremacists who stormed her hometown over the weekend. She was killed when a car slammed into counter-protesters. 20-year-old Alex Fields Jr. is charged with second-degree murder. Heyer's mother said at the memorial service today her daughter would always stand up for what's right. Meanwhile, Baltimore city leaders hope to avoid the violence seen in Charlottesville by removing Confederate monuments overnight under the cover of darkness. Crews in Baltimore took down 4 monuments, including a statue of Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. This decision to remove the statues came after the Baltimore City Council passed a resolution on Monday. The mayor, who approved that decision, said she chose to remove the figures overnight to avoid violent clashes. The city is still determining what they will do with those statues. White nationalist and part-time Whitefish resident Richard Spencer is running out of college campuses to host him. Following the violence in Virginia, the University of Florida has shut down a request by Spencer's alt-right group to have him speak in September. The university's president said the decision stems from the potential for violence, not the words or ideas. Spencer did attend the rally in Virginia over the weekend. He was next scheduled to speak at Texas A&M, but that university also canceled his visit. In other news, a Libby man accused of killing his ex-girlfriend in October is now awaiting sentencing after a Lincoln County jury found him guilty. The jury ruled Thursday that 42-year-old Trevor Mercier is guilty of deliberate homicide and tampering with evidence in the death of 30-year-old Sheena Devine. The victim was killed at her Libby home, and a friend found Devine's body the next day. Prosecutors say the victim was in a relationship with her killer that ended before the murder. The coroner testified Devine was strangled and beaten to death. A sentencing date is set for October 10th. The Billings man accused of killing an infant in June denies the charges during his first court appearance. 30-year-old Jason Badger entered a plea of not guilty in Yellowstone County District Court on Tuesday to the charge of deliberate homicide. Badger is accused of killing 6-month-old Christopher Hackerut. Badger was reportedly babysitting the boy the night before his death. Prosecutors say while Hackerut's mother was away at work, Badger dropped or threw the baby, causing serious injury. Badger said he was bouncing the boy at the Lockwood area home and accidentally dropped the baby. Badger, though, did not seek medical help, even though he admitted Hackerut's breathing became labored and the baby did not wake up from his nap. The boy's mother realized he was dead the next morning. Bond has been set at $100,000. The former Lone Peak High School basketball coach sentenced to prison for sexually assaulting 2 of his players will not receive a new sentence. The Montana Supreme Court issued its ruling on Tuesday against 24-year-old Kyle Kokot. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison back in 2015. Kokon argued his sentence is unjust because he claims he never admitted to sexually abusing a second girl. The High Court said in its ruling Kokot lied throughout the investigation and did not provide sufficient evidence in his appeal that the district's court sentence was unfair. The University of Montana will likely not renew contracts of about 40 lecturers come 2018. Higher education officials say the university is following policy and said the potential staffing cuts are part of an ongoing effort at UM to align faculty expenses with revenue. The guidelines require any cuts based on enrollment begin with non-tenure track employees. We're told none of the lecturers affected were eligible for tenure. But school officials say nothing is set in stone, and if the need for some of these positions exists moving forward, new contracts could be offered this spring. As many as 350,000 people will descend upon Wyoming for next week's solar eclipse, with lodging prices tripled and in some cases 10 times the cost of a usual night's stay. Many have turned to Airbnb, allowing residents to rent out homes and rooms to travelers. And in fact, a staggering 83% of hosts booking rooms for the events are first-time hosts. Nearly 4,000 guest arrivals have been booked for the eclipse through Airbnb. Sales tax will be collected from the rental properties and forwarded to the state. It's a 4% tax that local communities will feel this fall.
Well, I can tell you that I know some of the local governments are very excited about it, but, and anxious as well. You just don't know what the unknown's going to bring. We believe we will see an increase in revenue because we weren't confident that all of the hosts under this Airbnb platform are reporting.
Airbnb revenue must be submitted to the state no later than October 2nd. We turn now to the weather scene with Ed McIntosh. And we have our eye on the sky, but this time for the air quality.
That's right, especially in central and western Montana, Asia, as we're still dealing with a lot of smoke. And in fact, we're in another day where we have some hazardous air quality, especially again around Seeley Lake up in the highest category of hazardous. Also, we're struggling around the Missoula area, and then where you see a lot of orange and yellow dots, we're at least in the unhealthy category for this afternoon, or at least some smoky haze around. So especially for those areas as we get through the day today, make sure you limit that outdoor activity as much as you can. People with heart or respiratory problems, emphysema, certainly anything with elderly. The kids need to spend a little more time indoors, but keep watching for changing conditions because this has been changing almost hour by hour, day through day. We'll take a closer look at the forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ed. We'll check back in. A World War II Marine from Missoula fulfilled a promise he made to himself and a Japanese soldier who died 73 years ago. This week, 93-year-old Marvin Strombo traveled 10,000 miles to return a flag he took on the battlefield in Japan, giving it back to the soldier's family. The flag was inscribed with well wishes from those close to Sadao Yasu. It was customary for Japanese soldiers to take mementos with them to war for good luck. While on patrol in Saipan, Strombo found Yasu's body. He took the flag from Yasu with the promise that he would keep it safe and return it to his family someday. It was an emotional moment for everyone.
I knew what it meant to the family, because we heard what it meant to the family, and I couldn't take it off that soldier, and I finally realized if I didn't take it, somebody else wouldn't. It'd be lost forever.
The Yasu family didn't know much about Sadao's death, but believed he was killed at the age of 25 in 1944. They never had a body to bury. Marvin tried to learn the soldier's identity years ago, but language barriers made it difficult until the internet came along. Then, with the assistance of an organization that helps U.S. soldiers return flags to Japanese families, he was able to find Sadao's family. Still to come on the noon news, people in West Africa are sorting through the dead to find their relatives killed in the mudslide. Details from the scene. But first, Ed brings us a look at our weather forecast. Stay with us.
You're watching